Thanks, Tucker. Great job tonight. This is a Fox News alert. President Trump is back on the road. Earlier tonight, he held a rally in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, where the president reacted to an Obama-appointed federal judge, this time in Hawaii, putting another hold on his temporary travel ban and much more. Let's look at some of the highlights from tonight.
Moments ago, I learned that a district judge in Hawaii part of the much overturned Ninth Circuit Court and I have to be nice, otherwise I'll get criticized for. A judge has just blocked our executive order on travel and refugees coming into our country from certain countries. Some of the fake news said, I don't think Donald Trump wants to build the wall. Can you imagine if I said, we're not going to build the wall? Fake news. Fake news. We'll get rid of Obamacare and make health care better for you and for your family.
All right, we'll have reaction to the president's rally that's coming up later in the show. But first, NBC's corporate jihad against President Donald Trump continues. Plus, a new report from Circa News shows the investigation into a server connected to Donald Trump was, in fact, a politically motivated hit job pushed by a big-time Hillary Clinton donor. By the way, that's tonight's opening monologue. All right, NBC has now hit a new low by releasing the president's tax returns, or a small portion of them, last night. But what we're seeing from the alt-left propaganda, destroy Donald Trump media, it's not new. Now that Donald Trump occupies the Oval Office, the opposition party press is going to new extremes and lows to try and take down his presidency, and they won't stop until he's out of office. Now, I've been saying since 2008 right here on this program, journalism is dead. Now it's in the ground, buried, flowers on top. And last night's political hit job by NBC is just the latest example in the media's long list of attacks against the president. Here's just a small sampling.
Here you have a deranged president, or a pathologically lying president, lying about the operations of the American government and lying about the previous president of the United States. That's enough to invoke the 25th Amendment. But Mike Pence and the cabinet are not there yet.
When he said today, America first, it was not just the racial, I shouldn't say racial, the Hitlerian background to it.
I understand why so many people voted for him. I understand where you were coming from. I understand why you liked him. But this man is lying to you.
Trump's critics, those who are worried about this president and this White House, saw a live special television event brought to you by narcissism, thin skin, chaos, and deeply personal grievances.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president, in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
This is a really sad night. I'm just going to say it. This is a very sad night for the country. You can't polish this turd.
I don't know. Are you using the word lie or falsehood? What are you using?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
you have to use the word. You have to call it what it is. It was interesting because I saw Sean Spicer on Fox News, and he said that you were rude. And I thought, if
the First Amendment does not require us to be
when he called you fake news, what if you had called him a fake president?
Beyond awful. And when the alt-left propaganda media isn't doing what you just saw and attacking the integrity and mental health of the president, well, they're running wild with all kinds of bizarre conspiracy theories about the Trump campaign colluding with the Russians. Now, what the biased press refuses to tell you, there is no evidence whatsoever that shows any kind of collusion. Well, that didn't stop the leader of the alt-left propaganda media, Rachel Maddow herself, from going off the deep end last night, claiming that in 2005, a Russian oligarch knew that Donald Trump was going to be president. So he bought a property from him in Florida, and Trump made a huge profit, more than 2 times what he paid for it. And as I said last night, Maddow thinks that somehow maybe Russia knew in 2005 that Donald Trump would be elected president in 2016. Unfortunately, NBC News didn't think that was possible even on election night. Now, that's pretty pathetic, and the media should know better, but they'd rather put their radical left-wing agenda than telling the truth to the American people. That's why they never vetted Obama. That's why they colluded with Hillary. Now, two journalists at Circa News, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, who will be here in just a minute, have already debunked this Russia story and conspiracy and the talking points. Now, last week they reported that the FBI has found no evidence of collusion between Trump and the Russians, just like James Clapper had said. And that's officials that are inside the agency. They are frustrated how it's now being represented by this media that is corrupt. Tonight, they have another bombshell story. Here's the headline, quote, Hillary Clinton supporter pushed Trump-Russia computer narrative investigated by FBI. Now, according to the report, computer scientist and Indiana University professor L. Jean Camp pushed a theory into the left-wing media that a computer server connected to Donald Trump was communicating with a Russian bank. Now, the FBI did, in fact, look into it. They found nothing to indicate collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Now, it's very important to note that L. Jean Camp has donated, shockingly, thousands of dollars to Hillary Clinton, including $2,200 to her 2016 presidential campaign. She's also donated over $10,000 to Democratic groups and candidates since 2004, including the radical group MoveOn.org. But it doesn't end there. Camp also has a series of social media posts where she advocated for Hillary Clinton. She pushed the Trump-Russia conspiracy connection and talked about joining the, quote, resistance. Circa News reached out to Camp for a comment on the story. She confirmed the donations and said her actions regarding the server were not politically motivated. Oh, that's shocking. But once again, the alt-left media, they didn't even bother to look into this. Here now with more. The journalists who broke the story from Circa News, Sarah Carter and John Solomon. Let me ask, John, I'll start with you. Is anybody, this is pretty blockbuster information. You both have over 2 decades in the media. And by the way, you're not a member of my right-wing conspiracy. You worked for the AP for 20 years. I doubt I could get a job there, right?
Probably not, right?
All right. Has anybody else in the, probably not. All right, thanks a lot. A lot of confidence there, John. All right, so has anyone else in the media looked into your story, called you about it, asked for background, considering you're well known in this industry?
Yeah, they haven't. And of course, at the end of the day, when you do these things, you're more concerned about the facts and what sort of attention or media attention you get. Listen, there's so many things being thrown around Washington right now. And going back to the basics of journalism, I learned a long time ago, follow the money, follow the politics. And I think when you look at some of these allegations, you start to see a partisan political line and you see a money line. And I think both of those things are very important to keep looking at.
Sarah, has anyone reached out to you? And why don't you bring us up to speed on this new development while John gets his earpiece fixed?
Absolutely. No one's reached out to me either. And just like John, I mean, the most important thing is getting the facts out to the American public and ensuring that we're doing our job and doing our job well by stating those facts. What we discovered here is that Professor L. Jean Camp, who is very partisan and a supporter of Hillary Clinton, who's made donations not just to Hillary Clinton, but to groups supporting the Democratic Party, posted on her website, actually in October, these connections supposedly between the Trump server and the Russian bank. We know that they were first posted on Reddit, and we don't know by who yet, but we know that it was one of her colleagues, and that they pushed the FBI to investigate this. And the FBI did investigate this and found no collusion whatsoever. In fact, the data that was bouncing back and forth between the Trump server and the Russian bank, I mean, it contained no data. It was pings, and it contained no data. So they didn't find any collusion whatsoever and dropped the case. And like I said before, I mean, the investigation was less than 2 weeks. So they didn't spend a lot of time on it and kind of pushed it away. Although Camp stated to us in her email responses that she wished they had continued the investigation.
Well, it raises questions, Sarah, and before we get John back into this here, why did the FBI listen to a political partisan? And we talked about the FISA warrant and another warrant, which I'm suspecting it came from the FBI in some way, shape, matter, or form, a criminal investigation, and any ancillary information they got from a Trump server. There was surveillance on a Trump server from the Trump Tower, although it's off-site, it's the Trump Tower server, and they found nothing. Why don't they tell the American people this is nonsense and move on?
I don't know. All I know is that Senator Lindsey Graham has been asking the FBI to make that statement, and he even said today that there's no evidence proving that there's any investigation between Trump and Russia, and he hopes that the FBI Director Comey will answer that question. What we know is that Director Comey spoke with Senator Grassley today, as well as Senator Feinstein, and that meeting lasted more than an hour. What they spoke about was classified, and they did not reveal what was spoken about. But one thing that we do know is that coming from our sources, coming from the sources that John and I both spoke with, there is no evidence of any criminality between Trump and the Trump team and Russia to date. And that is a fact.
Was she acting as a lone agent on her own volition, John, or is there a potential here that this runs deeper? Maybe a collusion, maybe at the direction of somebody in the Hillary campaign or Hillary supporters?
Listen, Jean Camp is a well-respected computer researcher. She hung out, as she said, with a bunch of nerds. That was her term. And that they discovered these pings. They became fascinated by it, and they tried to gain attention to it. I think the most interesting part of her social media is when you look in the last few weeks, she seems to lament that this didn't get more attention and that it might have knocked Donald Trump out of the presidency. And it does go towards her motive. Giving donations to Hillary Clinton, lamenting that the allegations she made didn't knock Trump out of office. I think those are things that the American public have to take a look at and weigh when they see these stories.
Last question.
Sure.
Sarah, I'll throw it to you. Last question. So what's the next level of this story from your vantage point? What are the questions you want most answered?
Well, I think we've just reached the tip of the iceberg. But one of the questions that I think really needs to be answered, and it's a question that House Intelligence Chairman Nunes posed today. Who unmasked the names of Flynn? Who was looking at this raw data? How many more people in the White House could possibly be exposed by leaks in the future? And what are the regulations regarding those? I mean, these are questions that really need to be answered, and they're very damaging to the national security of this country, as well as to the rights of citizens for privacy. And I think there's going to be a lot more to this story, Sean.
I think there's going to be a lot more to it. I think you're right. The deep state, the Obama holdovers, career bureaucrats, saboteurs, they're trying to prevent the president from being able to do his job. They're spending so much time on these things. That's why I say that purge needs to happen. And I think the U.S. attorneys was only the first step, in my humble opinion. Anyway, thank you both for being with us. We'll follow this investigation.
It's going to get worse every day in the media. And here's why. But by the way, the internal logic makes sense. They're corporatist, globalist media that are adamantly opposed to an economic nationalist agenda like Donald Trump has. Here's why it's going to get worse. Because he's going to continue to press his agenda. And as economic conditions get better, as more jobs get better, they're going to continue to fight. If you think they're going to give you your country back without a fight, you are sadly mistaken.